morning, everybody. It's Charlie Fink and Ted Schilowitz with a special episode of This Week in XR. Today is Friday, June 17th, and we're here talking to the co-founders of a new startup called Lamina1. They are celebrities of sorts. Peter Vessenes, who is well known in crypto circles, and Neal Stephenson, the famous novelist, his most recent book, Termination Shock, but he is most famous in our very nerdy XR circles as the writer of 1992 novel Snow Crash, which predicted, among other things, the metaverse. Welcome, Neal. Welcome, Peter. It's a pleasure to have you on the podcast. Let's talk about Lamina1.
Lamina1.
Lamina1, excuse me.
Yeah, it's okay.
So close. I like Lumina1 though too. We might rebrand. It's possible.
Yeah. Well, there's obviously been a lot of ferment in the last year, particularly around the idea of the metaverse, and so there's different ideas on how to make that happen. I am interested in seeing if we can lay down some economic infrastructure that would make it worth people's while to actually contribute to such a metaverse. And so the purpose of Lamina1 is to do that using a new so-called layer 1 blockchain, which will mean nothing to people who don't follow crypto stuff, but
it's like Ethereum, right? Is a layer 1.
Exactly.
Yeah, Peter could maybe speak to that better than I can, but yeah.
So Charlie, to back up a step, and I always do this, like, okay, let's back up a step and let's go high level. So Neal and I know each other pretty well. We're friends. We talk. We have a mutual connection, of course, with all of us, with our friend Roni. I think it's on your advisory board or on your board.
I think the official term is Jedi Council.
There you go.
So, yeah.
So we are all friends. We know each other well. Neal and I talk on a pretty regular basis and understand each other's worlds, and have had very interesting conversations just about the terminology in Snow Crash and what a fervor it has created as the word of the year, perhaps, or the word of the decade.
Probably.
And maybe let's start there, and then how you're taking the fervor around the terminology of what Web3 really is, with your word, the metaverse that you created in Snow Crash, and what you guys are trying to accomplish at a high level. And then we can start drilling down into some of the blockchain and crypto and the touch points of it. But maybe give us the philosophy first of what you want to achieve, and why you as an author and a creator are taking your creation and trying to build it into something real.
Sure. Basically, I would like to see millions or even billions of people using the metaverse, and that's not going to happen unless, when they go there, they have experiences that they enjoy. So really, it boils down to creating such experiences, and obviously everyone likes different stuff, so there has to be a range of those experiences. It's not just one thing, but the people who are good at creating enjoyable experiences in three-dimensional environments are people who make video games today, and increasingly people who work in the motion picture and television industry, and who are using game engine technology and the game engine tool chain to make experiences there. So those people, by and large, have jobs, and so if we're going to get them to use their talents to make experiences that will draw people to a metaverse environment, we've got to lay down the economic rails that are needed to see to it that if they succeed and make things people like, that they'll get paid. So it starts with the economy. It starts with setting up value chains that work and that move money from the eyeballs, the people who are actually having these experiences, to the very talented and creative people who are responsible for making those experiences.
So we use the term the creator economy. Would you guys say that you're diving in to this concept of the creator economy and trying to allow people to monetize on their work with less layers and less infrastructure and less people trying to pull those dollars out of their pockets. Is that a correct statement?
For sure. And we think that when we talk about the crypto part of this, the blockchain and all that, that means a lot of things. But one of the most interesting things about it is smart contracts and the ability to set up pretty efficient ways of routing payments among different participants in a set of relationships. So in a nutshell, we want to create a chain that is engineered from the ground up to support that creator economy.
So you're planning on, correct me if I'm getting any of this wrong, and maybe this is more directed to Peter. You're planning on launching a token, and you will have that inside, but it's going to be your own. It's going to be your own underpinnings. It's not going to be running on Ethereum or Solana or Cardano or any of the other Polkadot or any of the other sort of.
It's a new blockchain. So
yeah, maybe. Yeah, I can maybe talk to that a little bit. Yeah, it'll Lamina is going to be, and already is on that list you just made. It's one of those. So the
can you buy it today? Is it
no. And actually you know, this is a forward-looking statement, so discount it appropriately, but we actually mostly hope to give it away to creators rather than sell it. So I think our intent is not to run a giant kind of public offering or something like that, and we're still figuring out the details there. One thing I wanted to say about the economy and the creator economy, you know, Neal's like, yep, we're all in on the creator economy, and I think that's true. My experience from the sort of earliest days of Bitcoin is there's this tantalizing possibility crypto holds out for like a totally new economic system. You know, Bitcoiners were not all in a company together. Ethereum wasn't either. There's this like very different kind of human organization that happened, that people had a lot of different ways to participate economically and carve out their space, but also still kind of pull together on these underlying tokens on these chains. So I actually think of what we're doing as like, you know, ideally, if we're successful, making sort of a new way for the creator economy to be functional. You know, we look now, kind of Neal was saying, we've got video game industry, which is like largely economically sort of a mix of tech industry and like maybe the studio system or something like this. And then we've got, and you guys know way more than I do about the studio system economics, but I think there's when we have a chain with a full tech ecosystem and a full tech stack built on it, there are a lot of new possibilities. Like you have distribution just naturally in that chain. You've got kind of like a full stack of things from creation all the way out to the public. So I think, you know, this is an ambitious goal, but the ambitious goal will be to rework, informed by the successes of crypto, the failures of crypto, and the successes of the studio systems and tech systems. See if we can get something new and that's better for people.
I think that the thing that's really interesting and the most sparky is you touched on the fact that your goal set, your ethical goal, is not to largely charge for the tokenization of this, for the purchase of this, but to actually make it an incentive for the creators that are building all kinds of interesting things across this broad terminology that's used in multiple different ways already called the metaverse, and allow them to have ownership of what they build and then monetize on it. So there's a touch of the kind of earn to play gaming moments of this, which have gone through all kinds of positives and then some negatives when we talk about Axie Infinity things. So you may want to touch on that a little bit to get people from a confidence standpoint, how you're approaching this a little differently than that. That's probably an interesting, sparky subject.
I just want to add to that. In a creator economy, of course, you've got to have the ability to convert the tokens that you earn or create into fiat currency.
Sure. Yeah. No, that's right. I mean, I'm actually like, this part to me doesn't maybe feel super complicated. Like when I started in Bitcoin, here's how you got Bitcoin. I turned on my laptop, I download the client, it said, wait 4 hours, turn on mining, wait 4 hours, and you'll get 50 Bitcoins. Okay. Now even today, 50 Bitcoins is like $1 million. At the time, it didn't even have a price. I was like, cool, I have 50 Bitcoins. I guess I'll turn my laptop off now and figure out what I want to do with those later. but the flip side of that for all the other network participants was like, I threw a little bit of resources in, like my computer helped secure the network briefly for this 10-minute chunk of the block that it got. And that's more like we have with smart contracts and I mean, there's been 13 years of innovation since then. So there are other ways to participate than just like time stamping a block. There's making the content, bringing the people, building the businesses, creating the venture funds that support it. And you know, Charlie, to your point, of course, like a lot of that has to tie back to the economy that like landlords take rent in and mortgage companies pay mortgage payments in. But in my mind, that instinct of like, hey, come join us, come build this, we'll build it together. And we can sort of like lay out the rails for that in the direction that we think should have some good economic outcome, and then creative people can kind of be creative on their side. That's the dream. And utopia, call it utopian if you want, but that's the goal.
Neal,
Oh, go ahead.
I didn't mean to interrupt you if you had a comment on that topic, because I was going to switch gears a little bit.
No, let's go ahead.
So I was going to address this to you because you know, although the definition inside of Snow Crash of the metaverse is not a very complicated one, which of course suited your purposes as novelist as you wrote the book, but it seemed to me that the metaverse, as you described it, also contained a digital twin of the physical world, allowing one to be present anywhere else through an avatar. Is that how, you know, and so that's number one, just laying that out for those who haven't read the book recently, because that's something I certainly point out when we're talking about the metaverse in anybody's definition, it has to contain the physical world. Otherwise it's still the internet. But in a lot of the press, and maybe it's just us making up things that sound good to get clicks, in much of the press, people have said, oh, well, Neal is taking his vision and making it real. But that sounds like more of a clickbait headline than what really is going on here.
So to talk specifically about what's in the book, there's kind of two things actually. There is the metaverse, which is completely what we would call VR, right? So it's not pegged to where you are in the real world. And then we have a whole separate kind of category of applications and activities that kind of, we see in the form of people called gargoyles. So they're people who are essentially doing what we would call AR. They're walking around in the real world, but they're wearing augmented reality headsets. This gets us into the idea of digital twins, and that can mean a few things. It can mean that those can be tied to specific locations, so that if I'm walking down a street and I've got my AR system on, I can see overlays or fictitious content that's in some sense placed in and interacting with the physical world. And that's the kind of thing that I was working on at Magic Leap. I think any of the above can be supported and will be supported by the economic structures that we're trying to put into place. But I imagine that the initial emphasis for most content creators is going to be on the VR as opposed to AR content, and that's just for the simple reason that that we have that now. We've got, anytime you play a video game, you may not be wearing goggles. You're probably not wearing goggles. You're probably looking at a two-dimensional pane of glass with pixels on it. But we've all learned by playing games how to navigate around 3D environments that are presented to us in video games. And it works pretty damn well. I mean, we've got hardware that's sensationally powerful for doing that. We've all learned, how to use the WASD keys on our keyboard and our mouse to navigate around those worlds. And there's a huge number creators in the game economy who are comfortable with making exactly that kind of experience. So I think, and I can tell you from working at Magic Leap that the AR stuff, while it's incredibly fascinating, is harder.
Yeah.
It is harder. And so, my prediction is just from a point of view of what the market wants and what content creators are currently equipped to deliver, we're going to see more VR type stuff at first, and that most of that will be delivered not through goggles, but just through the traditional pane of glass that you're staring at right now.
So this is already this multi-billion-dollar business of spatial gaming that moves onto the Z-axis, right? Like we'll refer to something like Grand Theft Auto, which could be in and of itself considered a metaverse because it is a world upon a world upon a world that players play in. Minecraft is a less violent version of that. An example.
Creepers are scary, actually. Creepers are really scary.
Yeah, it can all be very scary, right? But the majority of those people are playing on traditional screens with a spatial sense. They understand that we're moving into a 3D world. So it sounds like, Neal, you still have a pretty strong belief and are pretty still bullish on these advanced devices that over time get more and more sophisticated and eventually start to find a pseudo replacement to our traditional screen, just like our mobile pocket computer, which we call a smartphone, found a replacement zone and then actually became the dominant force, right? You still see that as a trajectory, a longer term trajectory?
For sure. It's just, it's not where we are today. Right. And I mean, technology is funny, right? It's very path dependent. And so 30 years ago in Snow Crash, it was all about goggles. But what we've got is that I sit here with my keyboard, which was designed in the Victorian era.
Yeah.
For controlling mechanical devices. Yeah. And I put my fingers on the WASD keys. And so I'm controlling this three-dimensional environment through a steampunk interface. And billions of people know how to do that. So that's where you start.
It's a really interesting point, because when you think about the evolution of this device, right? Yeah. And the IBM Park, and then into the Steve Jobs moment, this might have been the beginnings of the metaverse, right? Because the idea of spatially navigating inside that two-dimensional plane of pixels on your Mac SE back in the day was, well, and like, here's a little history, there's the beginnings.
There it is.
Quality mouse from the 80s.
That's kind of interesting, right? To think about it from that lens of how did this all start? And it started from navigation, right? And now we're looking at extraordinary advanced navigation. And you guys, with this new concept, are looking to apply this creator navigation economy into this world of allowing it to be tokenized, but tokenized in a different way, it sounds like, than just pure capitalism, right? And pure speculation, which I think is really interesting.
I have a question for Neal, actually, on I can imagine getting pretty comfortable with quality AR goggles for day-to-day work. VR for me is like a fun escape, but it's fundamentally an escape. Like, I'm not a big, I like to box in the VR goggles. I like to play Beat Saber. There's, it's actually really fun to play Minecraft in VR goggles because you have the sense of height you don't get on a 2D screen. You're like, oh my God, everything's so tall. I can't believe it. But I could imagine, like, in my workday, wanting AR goggles, either to cut out distractions, like the Leap technology lets you block stuff off, or get like some passive stuff. Neal, you probably spent so much time thinking about this. Like, do you see a kind of inflection point curve for some of that tech at some point, like the phone style, or do you think it's always going to be more like the VR goggles, which
for me, it's all about content. Again, it's like what's there that makes you want to do it. So that's, and that's, as I said, it's fascinating and exciting, but really hard to build content that knows about the physical world that's around you and is responsive to it in a meaningful way. But the hardware is getting closer for sure. The Magic Leap 2, which came out, was sort of released just a couple of weeks ago. You know,
I won
seems to,
a bunch of awards, yeah, wasn't it?
yeah, seems to be.
I think it
performing.
was the talk of AWE this year. It was you know, sort of I think a new way to think about Magic Leap and the possibilities for the device.
I'm like, Roni, how can I get one? It's like,
May not be the guy to call anymore.
Well, it's a solid evolutionary step forward, and
Yes.
Neal, you know as well. You know, field of view is always the challenge with mixed reality devices, and now they're starting to beat that.
Yeah.
Form factor will continue to get better and get more nimble over time, but the biggest thing was, to your point, the visual experience needs to actually be suitable and better than something you would do on a two-dimensional screen. And now we're starting to see that starting to happen, right? With the stuff that's happening on the technological front. And it's not just Magic Leap, right? You're going to have a whole crop of different devices that are really understanding that the human equation needs to have a pretty strong vertical field of view and a moderately strong horizontal field of view to feel like they're not watching this little cutout hole of what mixed reality is going to look like. And the Magic Leap 2 is really, I think, the first to bring that promise to life, which then leads us, you know, into all these things that you guys are trying to do to build an economy around these devices. Fascinating.
So if I might, Peter and Neal, let me try and sum up my understanding of what we've been talking about to date, or throughout our call. You want to create this economy and have it adopted by a wide range of companies, sort of probably similar in a way that everybody will adopt an avatar system of some kind, whether it's Ready Player Me or the system offered by Meta. So there'll be some common way. So you're thinking that those are both sort of APIs that fit into a stack of technology in a game engine that would sort of create a de facto standard?
Well, yeah, so we have sort of a whole tech stack we want to build, and mostly we want to give it away. Like, we think the way that crypto economics work, we're going to be able to give it away and in an economically sustainable way, keep building and supporting it. So yeah, there will be a dev kit. It'll tie into some major game engines you've heard of. What is the first thing you'll do with that dev kit? You'll be able to be like, host this virtual world online with, like, through Lamina1 render nodes. I'd like someone to run the servers for this multiplayer thing. You'll be able to mark objects as digital objects with provenance, something that could be traded, bought, sold, keep their own history.
And anyone who's using this payment system can recognize them.
Yeah, that's right. So then, yeah, so you'll have the ability to be like, this is the state, this is the stuff I want to store on the blockchain for everybody. You'll be able to say, I'd like to pull out and create my own little pocket metaverse. Could be really small, like a basement. Could be really giant, like a whole virtual world. And you'll be able to tap into the other resource providers, like cloud renderers, physics providers, markets for, digital object trading, NFT style stuff. All of that you'll be able to kind of like hook into. Meanwhile, we'll have people building that stuff out, these, the financial services, the rendering services and all that, and they'll be able to meet on the chain. So, but our goal for the creative side, what Neal's talking about, is like, if you want to work in Unreal, you work in Unreal, and then you just, a little bit like if you've ever played with Unreal, you can be like, this is a destructible object, or this, you'll be like, this is an object that should be tradable. This is a class of objects that should be out, and so on. And so those kind of, that's like our first launch plan, is a product kind of like that. Just click, 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 and it's out on Lamina1. And people can use it and start getting some of those benefits.
So you say launch plan. Can we drill down into that a little bit, at least as much as you know at this point?
You sound like one of our investors. Yeah,
I am often accused of taking some of my bad habits as an executive and dragging them into my current profession.
Boss me, Charlie. I'm ready. Yeah. What do you want to know?
No. I'm just you mentioned launch, so I'm thinking, well, this is what you're describing could take a really long time to develop and market. So I'm just thinking about what your launch horizon, a year, 3 years. I don't know. Yeah,
good question. I mean, so we have like 3 or 4 streams going right now at the company. There's capital formation, just again talking to investors, figuring out who wants to get on this crazy train with us, who believes in what Neal's doing and what we're doing. Then there's the spatial side, which I was just kind of talking about a little bit, which is like, what's the very first thing you're going to be able to do. There's the blockchain side, which is like this, this kind of the server what supports the things we want to do. So on the blockchain side, we're hoping to have test/beta net up this fall. People can play with it. It won't be done. It won't be final, but they'll be able to start kind of mucking around with it. The dev kit, I can what's the word, imitate a blockchain CTO, but I'm not one, and we're still sort of finalizing our recruiting team there. I cannot pretend to be a spatial CTO, so I will say my goals would be like really very simple to start, like just that dev kit could expand over time, but philosophically I like to build on success, so I'd rather really like narrow the scope, build something out. We also have first party IP, which is more Neal's world. Like Neal's revealed on stage, even to me last week, he's thinking about some new content. And I was like, oh my God, what is it? So Neal could maybe talk about that side, what he's making.
He's like, you're muted, Charlie.
I'd love to hear about that, Neal.
Yeah, well, the I mean, just sort of big picture first, it's a pretty common kind of structure in games that you'll have a big company like an Epic or a Valve that is making a platform that they're hoping is going to be used by zillions of third-party users, be it a game engine or a store or all of the above, and at the same time have in-house first-party content that serves different purposes. I mean, in the case of Epic with Fortnite, it makes a lot of money. In the case of, say, Half-Life, Alex at Valve, I don't know what the financials are, but it's a flagship product that shows everything that their VR system is capable of doing. So it plays a few roles. It's dog fooding your own technology. It's having in-house people who can talk to the engineers and say, we need this feature. Yeah. This feature doesn't work. Here's a new idea for something we'd like to add. So we're going to have first-party content in this. And
can I be the creative lead to make up that content, Neal?
No.
God damn it.
So it's interesting that you guys are going down this part of this particular rabbit hole of the many rabbit holes, because as you're talking, I'm thinking you made reference points to all the things that were in my brain that start to look at the utopian ideals of what you're doing and what many of the others are doing around using blockchain infrastructure and then putting a metaverse / Web3 layer on top of all that for the visual and creator components of it. But also thinking about all those companies you just touched on. So, let's put it through the lens of fiat currency, right? In a fiat world, right? Which is like the dollars that governments use and real money that we all have in our pocket, as opposed to crypto. Conceptually, the idea of Epic is doing this in their own bespoke way. And you just mentioned Fortnite as a giant economic engine for Epic. Unity, and I believe you've got, in addition to our friend Roni, you've got our friend Tony Parisi, who was ex-Unity, working with you on these wonderful aspirations of what you're doing. They have their own economic engine and their own creator economy that already works within the fiat currency world. You mentioned Valve, and the other part of that component is Steam, which is effectively the largest sort of open gaming economy in the world, where people can put up things on that platform and see if they catch and see if they can make money. And many people do generate money, but it's all taken through the lens of the normal dollar economy, right? So how do you guys evolve all those things? Because it seems like you want to work with all of them and you want to be tied to all of them in some fashion, but you want to connect the dots in a new way. Am I teeing that up in a way that you can take this and run with it a little bit and talk about it?
Yeah, I mean, I would say to be absolutely clear that these companies, all for different reasons, are keeping crypto stuff at arm's length, and we're not claiming otherwise. We do think that maybe creates an opportunity to try to experiment with some crypto-based alternatives in the negative space that is thereby created.
Yeah, and I mean, one of the things about these platforms, I mean, we could run through. So what Valve takes 30%, right? Meta, I'm even calling it Meta. I'll call it Facebook. Facebook quite famously takes like 46% or some crazy number on the Oculus. Sweeney's been really public talking about how those are not good numbers, right? So he's kind of been in court and in public being like, oh, it could be low, it could be lower. Of course, he takes 100% on digital goods in Fortnite, which is a huge thing, right? So I would say like we think probably the right number is a lot lower. And one of the things about this sort of permissionless blockchain system is that actually everybody's gonna be able to, there's gonna be a free market. So like we talk render nodes, what does it really cost to provide and the platform, the technology, the backup? I don't exactly know, but I do know that we're going to make a place for people who are providing that to compete on price. And then what's nice about crypto is if you want to see if that ends up being valuable, you can just be part of the chain. You can hold the chain token and we'll all float together. We'll be the Epic or the Valve or whatever together on what the results are for that. So yeah, we are like totally informed by those platforms, but we don't want to be appropriative with the value there. I think we want to kind of like go on a ride together and have everybody figure out together when were you to squeeze that down from 46% to whatever the actual costs are, where should the rest of the money go? It could go to everybody participating in the chain, and that's the goal.
Do you see a unifying navigation between the different virtual worlds that you want to put on this payment on rails system?
You should come to the product meetings.
I mean, well, but the first place I start out is the first place that Neal showed me in VR.
Well, when you say navigation, do you mean actually moving through a virtual space or using it?
Well, no, I mean, I'm talking about the metaphor for it.
Yeah.
Like in the book, there was this endless boulevard.
Oh, yeah.
The street, yeah.
So, and actually Ready Player One, at least the movie, really illustrates that, right? Everybody shares a spawn point and then jumps through a portal.
Yeah. I think as a practical matter, it's going to be somewhat more compartmentalized, and that's partly for just game engine reasons. There's more than one game engine, and to move fluidly from one to the other all the time is not a thing that is going to be happening soon.
Boiling the ocean style.
Yeah, I mean to put it another way, we would like to go to market and have things running before that can be achieved. So
Neal's grandkids are working.
Yeah. But there's other reasons as well that a more sort of modular, compartmentalized architecture may be what we want for a metaverse. And we could go really deep on that, but it has to do with how different people want to create their own experiences. If I'm, for example, making a branded experience for a fashion manufacturer or somebody like that, then I want to have a sort of a cell wall, if you will, that separates what I'm doing from the random noise outside. It's just a lot easier for devs to build a contained experience with a known boundary than it is for them to sit there trying to anticipate every possible interaction that might happen with the neighbors.
I mean, there's like whole jobs in Hollywood just as colorists, right? Just literally matching. So yeah, so I think I agree. I think partly because the chains are fundamentally permissionless. You do what you want, and so I think how this is going to work out is you're going to do whatever you want in your space, and then there's going to be some shared connectivity. Some places where you might inject your space or share, but they're going to be rules for those spaces, and those rules will probably vary. I think that's how I'm imagining this right now.
As you guys are talking, I'm really interested in your vision of because I work on the visual side, right? I work for a big movie studio, big entertainment company, as Neal and I know, and we talk about a lot of those things. I'm very interested in your visual sensibility. And as you're talking, I'm thinking about how does this differ from things that have existed in the precursors of the metaverse in various ways, things like Second Life, like Star Citizen, like Fortnite that you mentioned, other things that we're largely calling the metaverse today, or the beginnings of the metaverse. What, and maybe this is, well, probably for both of you, but maybe Neal first.
No, so I got fired from creative. This is all Neal. You should go. Yeah.
Well, I'm giving the crypto guy his chance to sort of lay it on
No, go.
Right? But do you have a sense yet, or maybe this is just still cultivating, of how you visualize how you're going to differentiate from, say, a Second Life or a Star Citizen, as just a precursor example?
So art direction, is everything. And, as every movie, every TV show, every video game begins with some concept of what it's going to look like, how it's going to be different from others in the space. And in some cases, it's pretty subliminal. Like a lot of moviegoers probably aren't aware that there are colorists who've color matched every single frame of every single shot to make it all have a particular effect. In other cases, it's pretty in your face. We're going to see, and we want to see, kind of what I might call enthusiast communities in metaverse, because people want to go out there and they want to build stuff. And we're also going to see other areas that have been very carefully crafted to have a particular look. I've been playing, just to name one of many possible examples, I've been playing a video game called Valheim that has a very strong, coherent art direction to it. It's a beautiful game. And people appreciate that beauty. They like that beauty, and creators like to have that control. They want things to look a particular way. Even Fortnite, which is a mashup style game that brings together John Wick and Iron Man and all of that into one game, those elements have all been kind of run through a certain style of art direction that makes them somewhat coherent, even though they came from completely different IP universes. So our general, I think, approach here, which comes out of the ethos of crypto and open source and the internet, is not to impose any top-down set of standards on what people are supposed to do and how it's supposed to look. It's going to be a bottom-up thing, and users are going to gravitate towards the style of experience that they find most appealing.
So, Charlie, I know we're probably getting close to the end of our dedicated time. Maybe we go over, because these guys are quite fascinating to talk to. But I'll throw my final question. You probably have one too. Neal, from your perspective, what is most inspirational? What is exciting you about the metaverse as it stands today, and all the people sort of finding their way to it? And what most terrifies you? What most worries you about where things might be headed?
Well, it's nice to end on a positive note, so I'll start with I'll take that in reverse order. There's a line in Harry Potter that says, never trust anything if you can't make out where it keeps its brain. And I think on the internet, the equivalent is never trust any site or any experience that you're having if you can't make out how it's making money. Or there's even a law, I've forgotten who said this, but it's if you're on a website or on a platform and you can't figure out what the product is you.
Yes, Steve Ballmer.
So so that's going to exist, but I'm personally more comfortable with a scheme like you see on a store like Steam or the Epic store, where you pay for things that you want. And so the profit, the way that people make money is very much out in the open. It means you have to pay up front for things, which takes a bite out of your pocketbook, and nobody likes that. But there's no kind of hidden machinations going on behind the scenes. So that's what we're aiming for. And I guess in terms of what's exciting or what's positive, the answer has to do, for me, with the maturation of the tool chain and the number of people who know how to use that tool chain. So I'm not going to say it's easy, like these game engines and programs like Blender and Maya are big, complicated programs that are hard to use, but they're incredibly powerful. And increasingly, people do know how to use them. And increasingly, it's possible to get access to training, not by going to a seminar or paying for a class, but just looking at free videos on YouTube. So it's becoming a pretty democratic sort of space. Most of this stuff you can use for free, not all of it, but it's that democratization and the globalization of creativity that I think creates an environment where it's now for the first time possible to see a path to the creation of a metaverse.
I do have a final question, but we're getting toward the end, because the things you're talking about bring to mind some of the things that are going on already. People can make levels with the game engine in VR chat using their SDK, or in Altspace. They give you an avatar system you can use, which is a huge undertaking if you have to build your own. And what they're missing is a payment system. Right. Yeah. There is no economy in VR chat. The people uploading levels are basically doing it for free hosting, which, is, if you build a big world, can be really expensive for an individual. So I was just wondering if you had a point of view about that, whether you're going to start from scratch and people are going to be uploading levels. Do you have any thoughts about that as we wind down here?
Peter?
Yeah, I think we're going to be, mostly what we're building is one layer above or below that, or whatever, which is to say, yeah, it's a chain. So there will be fundamental payment rails baked in from the beginning.
So VR chat or Altspace could potentially use your system in the future.
And they'll have like first party access if they want to have it monetized in some way or build an economy. They can do that.
So they could be using VR chat hosting and their avatars and leverage your payment system, perhaps, obviously, depending on how they want to let people into their walled garden. But if they did, it could be sort of a Lamina enabled.
Well, and if they wanted to instrument with the Lamina token, with the L1 token, fine. If they want to make their own token, fine. If they want an NFT based or some other not fungible system, no problem. Achievements, all those will be kind of baked into the tech stack for them to tap in. So we don't, we on our first party side, we'll have our own opinions about what the right thing to do is for a first party product, but in the broader scheme, actually, like, let 1,000 flowers bloom, or I think we want to see a lot of things. So
well, that's a great place to end this podcast. This interview has been great. You guys have been very generous with your time and your unique insights. So I think I learned a lot here. And I think I speak for Ted also in giving you guys, again, sincere thanks for making time for us. This is a special episode. Hopefully a lot of people will listen to it and get some more information about what you guys are up to. And most of all, of course, we wish you success.
Thank you, Charlie.
Thank you. Thanks for your time.
All right, everybody. Have a great weekend.
Yeah, you too.
Thanks, you guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye.